All right, another fight heating up in Washington, this time making many see red. It is all over whether or not the Redskins should change their name to appease critics who call it politically incorrect. Just yesterday, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell met with Redskins owner Daniel Snyder, who reiterated that he won't consider changing the team's name. But does anyone realize the cost of actually doing it? Let's get to today's Money Talk with our all-pro panel. We've got Peter Shankman, Maggie Gray, and Ari Zoldan. What do you think? Peter, what do you think? Should they change the name?
I could have sworn there was other news that was more important than we were talking about. But
no,
you know,
this is big money. Now, come on. You can't come out of the gate and do that.
But here's the thing. I really doubt that when the Redskins were first formed, that a bunch of white guys sat around and they said, okay, how can we offend Indians? Why all of a sudden, after countless years, is this a problem?
Ari, I'll tell you why.
Because
if my child went to school and referred to Native Americans as Redskins.
But they're not referring to Native Americans. They're referring to a football team.
Yeah, but Peter, times have changed.
Yeah.
And there's over 300,000 American Indians today. And if they're insulted, then, change the name. Listen, wait. I'm an Orthodox Jew. If we had a football team called the Jews, I would have a big problem with it, okay?
First of all, it would be called the yarmulkes. That's number one.
Sure. Or kippahs.
The kippahs, right.
The kippahs, which is fine, But in terms of, today, if you have an organization and a very large institution of people insulted, so change the name.
Yeah, they're absolutely insulted by this. And I think that Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, is going to end up coming down on the wrong side of history here, because other college teams have changed their names. And actually, you go back to the beginning and how this team was really originated. Well, the founder of the team, George Marshall, was a renowned racist. And unfortunately, as much as they've tried to get past that, that's a legacy that the family leaves.
I mean, then it's a slippery slope. What about the Cleveland Indians?
I'll take it a step further. There are
unless
people
we're talking about people from Mumbai, they're not allowed to call them.
There are people in the South who hate Yankees. Okay, what about that?
Listen, today we're living in an extremely sensitive.
Where does it end?
Listen, we're in where it ends, I'm not sure. But if people are getting insulted, and we're talking about sports, right? We want to keep it unbiased. So play the game, get the religion, get the race, get everything out of it, and rebrand the company.
White shirt, black tie, we're both racist.
We're talking about sports, but we're talking about money. I mean, what is the best money move for the team? Because on one hand, they have a lot of investment in the name Redskins. I mean, that's what everybody identifies with. It's, some estimates are it'd be $10 to $20 million to change the name. I think it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more.
It's a lot more.
It's a lot more. It's the merchandising, it's the logo, it's the website.
Right.
And I mean, you know better than I do, Peter, about this, but you're probably talking about $500 million to completely revamp.
I'm not a money person, but I can give you an anecdotal. I've lived in Washington and covered Washington sports for 2 years, and there's not a fan base that's more passionate than the Washington fan base. Whatever is on the logo, whatever the merchandise is, they will buy it. They will still buy tickets. And actually, merchandise is split between all the teams. It's the ticket sales, it's the parking, it's going there buying concessions, it's that type of thing. They're getting so much money from the TV revenue anyway. To change the logo, I don't think is going to be something that's going to severely impact
maybe it would be a money-making venture to change it. I mean,
everyone buys new stuff.
Every 5 years, we change every team, and then we all have to buy new jerseys, and we all have to buy.
Right. I mean, it generates all new revenue, and then also, I mean, you could have a contest within the city for a new name, and you could make a whole. I mean, you're the marketing guy. It could be an entire PR stunt.
They've already done this, and people have come up with names.
I would love to see Reddit hijack this, and it would become something ridiculous.
Listen, it can actually be a great story to actually crowdfund the entire concept, right? And you know about this, Peter, right? Okay, let's vote via Facebook to see
and
what the best name
Post,
is.
They did that. They had a Washington Post.
You have to have respect for Daniel Snyder, though, not wanting to be bullied into changing the name of his team. I mean, it's his team. It's the tradition. You have people at Florida State, for example, where they get a lot of heat for their mascot. I'm blanking on his name, but he's the Native American chief down there who goes out in the middle of the game. They get a lot of grief for that as well, and for dressing up and that. I mean, he says, where does it end? I don't want to be politically correct. This is the name of my team. We all know that it wasn't meant to be offensive. It's just the name of the team.
And that I think is the issue. There are words out there that are completely offensive that have been since the beginning of time. Yeah. But on the flip side, there are names of teams that are not. Again, where does it end? And that's my biggest fear is that
I think you move to the Cleveland Indians next, right? I mean, next stop.
The mascot is very offensive, right? But to say that Daniel Snyder would ever be bullied is unfathomable, in my opinion. The guy is powerful. He runs so much. I mean, Roger Goodell, who actually met with the head representative of the Oneida Indian tribe today, I mean, he works for the owner, so Daniel Snyder is definitely not being bullied by anything. But the fact that in business, I mean, you guys cover business, I cover sports, but you would never just continue to do something just because that's the way it's always been done, right? That's not how innovation works in business. So why do it in sports?
But in business, there's a difference between the love and the loyalty that a company has towards a business versus the love and loyalty a company has towards a team that they've grown up with.
Sports fans will follow anything as long as it wins.
But it comes down to the talent. So if the talent is good, who cares what the name is, right?
Obviously, a lot of people. I mean, this is getting a lot of press.
Yeah.
I mean, you've followed this guy for a long time, Daniel Snyder. What do you think happens? What do you bet?
I think that eventually the name will change. I think that eventually the pressure will mount, and he will turn and change the name. And I think that he'll look like it happened 10 years too late.
Yeah, and what is eventually? Because, I mean, the pressure they're meeting today, I mean, it's mounting. This is a story that it feels like isn't going away.
Well, I can only go back to things that happen when we see this in other areas of sports. When the sponsors start pulling out, when the sponsors start feeling it, that's when the NFL will have to really wake up and say, all right, what are we doing here?
So and the other owners. It's all dollar driven.
Name one thing. It's all about money.
It's all about money.
All right, thanks. You guys were fantastic.